Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make a few comments with regard the adoption by the Council of the presidential statement on the humanitarian situation prevailing in my country, Syria. First of all, I would like to thank all those who have acted in good faith in drafting the language with which the draft was written and adopted finally. Then I would like to draw your kind attention to the fact that finally, after 8 previous attempts to adopt previous presidential statements, the Council finally succeeded in moving ahead over the impediment and handicaps and obstacles which were created by some of the P3 many times, preventing the Council from adopting other draft resolutions which were dealing with the overall situation in my country, Syria. For the first time, we see that finally the Council raised the awareness of its members with regard to important and crucial issues such as the role of the terrorist groups operating in my country. For the first time, we see a clear-cut reference in a presidential statement to violations, murders, terrorism, act of sabotage, violation and abuses of the international humanitarian law as well as the human rights law perpetrated by the terrorist and armed groups operating in my country. This is a positive development. This in itself is a positive development because we have been struggling for 2.5 years to raise the awareness of some members in the Council to this very important fact. Finally, we have it today in this presidential statement. Then the other point which is related directly to the issue of the so-called cross-border. Again, the presidential statement makes a clear-cut reference in the preliminary paragraphs as well as in the operative paragraphs to the fact that the implementation of the humanitarian assistance should be consistent with and in line with the guiding principles of providing humanitarian assistance, meaning respecting the provisions of the General Assembly Resolution 46/182, which means and which requires the respect of the sovereignty, territorial integrity of Syria. And this is being a clear-cut crystal mentioned in the draft resolution. My government has been and still committed to the implementation, to the full implementation of the plan of response for the humanitarian needs in my country. We have signed with Mrs. Amos the 5th plan of response, and we are deeply and fully committed to respecting and observing the provisions of this plan of response for the humanitarian needs in Syria. So the Syrian government is an integral part of the overall collective effort aiming at providing humanitarian assistance to the Syrian people wherever they are. Wherever they are. Everything should go through the cooperation between the Syrian government and the OCHA office at the United Nations.
الدولية ستكون نزيهة عن عدم نقل السلاح والمسلحين عبر هذه المساعدات إلى سوريا؟
هناك التزام تعاقدي بين الحكومة السورية وبين الأمم المتحدة ممثلة بالأوتشا ينص على ضرورة أن يتم كل شيء تحت رقابة الحكومة السورية ووفق حيثيات خطة الاستجابة الإنسانية. وبالتالي هذا المحظور كل من ينتهك هذا البعد يتحمل نتائج والمسؤوليات المترتبة على ذلك. نحن بالنسبة لنا ملتزمون بتقديم كل أنواع المساعدة للأمم المتحدة لتطبيق خطة الاستجابة المتفق عليها. ما عدا ذلك كل إنسان يتحمل تبعات أي خرق أو انتهاك أو تجاوز للاتفاق.
I'm assuming you're going to be asked about the number of visas and the number of NGOs, but I wanted to be sure to ask you this question. On Friday, you said that Syria had sent a letter to the Secretary General about the meeting held by France, a group of friends of the Syrian people with Ahmed al-Jarba. It turns out that Saturday, the Secretary General met with Mr. Jarba and his residence and issued a readout. And I just wanted to know, what do you think of that? How does the objections about precedent and the charter raised in your letter apply to the meeting of the Secretary General, and has he spoken to Syria about his reasoning for doing that?
I'm afraid that some members in the Security Council, particularly among the P3, some, not all of them, mainly speaking the French delegation, has acted, unilaterally speaking, in violation of the provisions of the Charter by organizing a side event which hosts a body which is not internationally recognized, a body which has been created by the Western capitals as well as the Turkish government. This is why it is called the Coalition of Istanbul. People don't call it the coalition. I mean, just the coalition. They call it the Coalition of Istanbul. The way they used to call the National Council of Doha, as an indication of those who created these artificial bodies. Sometimes I have the feeling, and many political analysts also have shared with me this feeling, that the French diplomacy in the Security Council does not really reflect the weight of a permanent member. I have heard some comments the other day saying that a historical mistake was made in 44, 45, when the founding members agreed to give to France the status of one of the P5. So we are facing here a serious problem with the French diplomacy. We drew the attention of the Secretary General to this issue. It's really unfortunate because it happened the same day when 45 armed groups operating in Syria and working for these same governments, the Turkish, the Saudi, and the Qatari, and the French, declared that they disassociated themselves from the Coalition of Istanbul. That was a serious coup to those who were seeking by all means to give some kind of credibility to the so-called Coalition of Istanbul. Here we have a legal matter that should be stated clearly by the Secretariat. The Syrian government is being represented by the Syrian delegation to the United Nations. There is no two Syrian governments. There is only one. And you and the Secretary General and the P5 and everybody in the Council has the obligation to deal with the Syrian government. Any side event, informal side event, that any member of the Council or from outside the Council wishing to hold it, they have the whole freedom to hold it, but outside of the UN premises, not inside the UN premises.
Excuse me, Ambassador, part of the reason for today's statement was because of according to Ms. Amos in the past, was because of bureaucratic blockage in Damascus and trouble with...
Because of?
Blockage for hate groups in Damascus in giving permits in bureaucracy and the cross-border...
She didn't say that. No, she didn't say that. She didn't say that.
She didn't say it today.
She didn't say that in our meetings with her.
So it's all
She didn't
okay.
say that.
All the aid's going through. No
She didn't say
problem.
that, and there is no bureaucracies and there is no obstacles, and she knows very well that we signed with her a plan of response, that we are fully respecting it and observing its provisions.
Ambassador,
Here, please.
إذا أمكن توضيح باللغة العربية، ما هو موقفكم من مشاركة الائتلاف السوري في الأمم المتحدة في مؤتمر نظمته فرنسا؟
شرحت ذلك للتو شرحت ذلك للتو باللغة الإنجليزية.
Now that you have some improvement on the chemical weapons front and on the humanitarian front, do you think it is appropriate now for Mr. Ibrahimi to go to Damascus and meet with President Assad in order to make some progress in the political process?
Mr. Al-Ibrahimi should meet with the capitals that are sponsoring, harboring, training, arming the armed groups and the terrorist groups before going to Damascus. Damascus is on board. We declared that we would go to Geneva, and Al-Ibrahimi knows the name of the head of the Syrian delegation. So the Syrian government is on board. The problems lie on the other side. Those who are still hesitating and reluctant to supporting and advancing and progressing the process of Geneva II. Some capitals are still against the holding of Geneva II conference. Then you have the problem of who would represent these thousands of armed groups and terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda, operating in Syria. Who would hold these groups responsible and accountable to Geneva process? Then who would represent the so-called Syrian oppositions, in plural, in Geneva conference? If the government is there, and it will be there, who would be the counterpart of the Syrian government at this table of negotiations? So Al-Ibrahimi should first address these very serious concerns to those who are behind arming, supporting, and protecting the armed groups and the terrorist groups. For the first time in the presidential statement, we have a clear-cut reference to the presence of terrorist groups in Syria, violating international law. It took the council members 2.5 years to address this issue and to realize that, yes, what the Syrian government has been saying with regard to the presence of terrorist groups on the ground is accurate. 2.5 years to acknowledge the veracity and the accuracy of what we are saying.
Ambassador, on the chemical weapons.
Ambassador, you said you've agreed to a response plan with Valerie Amos, but will the Syrian government agree to abide by the aid access being requested by this resolution?
By?
This statement, sorry.
The statement will be studied by the capital, and then you will hear about our official reaction to it. But we are fully, positively engaged in implementing the plan of response for the humanitarian needs with the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Assistance, OCHA, meaning OCHA.
Ambassador, on the chemical weapons.
He insists. نحن نبهنا عدة مرات في الماضي إلى وجود خلل خطير في أداء الأمانة العامة وتعامل الأمانة العامة مع التحقيق بالنسبة لاستخدام السلاح الكيماوي. الاتفاق الأساسي بيننا وبين الأمانة العامة كان ينص على التحقيق فيما جرى في خان العسل. بيت القصيد في طلب الحكومة السورية من الأمانة العامة التحقيق في استخدام السلاح الكيماوي كان يتعلق باستخدام المجموعات المسلحة الإرهابية السلاح الكيماوي في خان العسل. يؤسفني أن أقول أن الأمانة العامة ارتكبت خطأين. الخطأ الأول هي عندما سحبت أفراد فريق التحقيق قبل إنهاء المهمة، لأن نص الاتفاق بين الأمم المتحدة والحكومة السورية كان أن يبقى المحققون لمدة 14 يوما في سوريا لاستكمال التحقيق. المحققون انسحبوا في اليوم التاسع، لم يكملوا المهلة الكاملة، وبالتالي كانت النتيجة هي إصدار تقرير جزئي وليس تقرير شامل. التقرير الجزئي لم يعالج الحدث الأهم، ألا وهو استخدام الكيماوي في خان العسل. الخطأ الثاني الذي ارتكبته الأمانة العامة هي أنها بعد إصدار التقرير الجزئي وللأسف أن هذا التقرير الجزئي أصدرته الأمانة العامة في نفس اليوم الذي كانت الإدارة الأمريكية تهدد باستخدام القوة ضدنا والاعتداء على سيادتنا. مستفيدين طبعا، مستفيدة الإدارة الأمريكية من هذا التقرير الجزئي كوسيلة لتبرير أي عدوان. الأمانة العامة بعد ذلك أعادت المحققين إلى سوريا لاستكمال المهمة، لكن هذه المرة أيضا وللمرة الثانية المحققون لم يذهبوا إلى خان العسل، وبالتالي فما زلنا نحن يعني عمليا لم نصل بعد إلى تطبيق الاتفاق الذي وقعناه مع الأمانة العامة. خان العسل حتى الآن لم يتم التحقيق فيها.
هل يؤثر ذلك على التحقيق؟ وهل هناك لما تزال آثار للاستخدام الكيميائي في خان العسل؟
العلماء والاختصاصيون والخبراء هم الذين يقدرون ذلك، لكن وفقا لتقديرات مساعدة الأمين العام لنزع السلاح السيدة أنجيلا كين، ووفقا لآراء الخبراء استخدام غاز السارين، يعني غاز السارين آثاره تبقى في مكانها لفترات طويلة.
Ambassador, on the chemical weapons, is it your view that they should be destroyed on Syrian soil or outside of the country?
It's up to the agreements between the two sides.
What is the view of your government?
It's up to the agreement between the two sides. I wish one day we would dismantle together the Israeli nuclear weapons and chemicals and biologicals. Yeah, thank you so much.